You already know it works. You have felt it your whole life. That strange pull when someone tells you not to do something and suddenly it is the only thing you want to do. The sign that says wet paint and your finger moves toward it anyway. The parent who says do not eat that and the food becomes instantly irresistible. The rule that turns the ordinary into the forbidden and the forbidden into the obsession. This is not weakness. This is not stupidity. This is your brain doing exactly what it was built to do. And once you understand the engine underneath that impulse, once you really see it for what it is, you can use it. Not against yourself, for yourself. In the rooms where decisions get made, in the relationships that matter, against the inertia that keeps most people exactly where they started. Most people spend their entire lives being pushed around by forces they cannot name. Someone smarter figured out the game earlier. They are not stronger than you. They are not luckier. They just learned that human beings almost never move in straight lines. They learned that the fastest way to get something is almost never to ask for it directly. That the most effective door is rarely the front door. They learned reverse psychology. Not as a trick, not as manipulation in some shadowy, calculating sense. As a philosophy, as a way of reading people so clearly that you never have to fight them at all, because the fight itself is usually the problem. Here is what nobody tells you about persuasion. The moment someone feels like they are being pushed, something ancient and automatic fires in the brain. Psychologists call it reactance. You can call it stubbornness. You can call it pride. But it does not matter what you call it. What matters is that it is real, it is powerful, and it is happening to everyone around you every single day. The moment a person feels their freedom is being threatened, they want that freedom more than they ever did before. They dig in. They push back. They say no just to prove they can say no. And if you are someone who argues, who convinces, who pleads, who explains at length, who tries harder when the resistance increases, you are feeding that reaction. You are pouring fuel on a fire you are desperately trying to put out. Reverse psychology does the opposite. It removes the flame entirely. It steps back. It says, fine, you are right, maybe this is not for you. And suddenly there is nothing to push against. Suddenly the other person is standing in a room alone, with their own thoughts and no enemy to fight. And in that silence, something shifts. The armor comes down, the defensiveness softens. And the idea you left in the room, the one you stopped defending, starts to look different when there is no one standing behind it demanding it be accepted. Think about the last time you told someone they probably could not handle something. Think about how their face changed. Think about how the spine straightened, how the jaw set, how the eyes got a little sharper. That is not anger you are seeing. That is ignition. You did not insult them. You lit a match inside them. People will move mountains to prove they are capable when they believe someone genuinely doubts them. This is not a trick. It is biology. The self-concept is fragile and fierce at the same time, and it will fight to defend itself with a fury that surprises everyone, including the person it belongs to. If you understand that, you understand one of the deepest and most reliable levers in all of human behavior. But here is where people get it catastrophically wrong. Reverse psychology is not lying. It is not cruelty dressed up in clever packaging. It is not manipulation in the dark, hoping nobody notices the strings. When it becomes that, it collapses. People feel the insincerity. They always feel it, even when they cannot name it, even when they are not sure why they feel uneasy around a particular person or in a particular moment. The gut knows. The gut always knows. So if you are going in with something fake, something hollow and calculated, it will backfire. It will backfire hard, and it will backfire permanently. Because real reverse psychology is not a facade. It is built on truth. It is built on understanding what someone genuinely wants, what they genuinely fear, what story they are telling themselves about who they are, and meeting them there with honesty instead of pressure. The most powerful version of this is what you could call strategic withdrawal. You stop chasing. Not as a game, not as performance designed to look casual while you wait anxiously by the phone. You actually stop. You pull your energy back. You become less available, less eager, less convinced that this particular person or situation or opportunity is everything. And this does something remarkable to the dynamic. It creates a vacuum. Human beings hate vacuums. We are wired from something very old and very deep to fill them. The person who is passive becomes curious. The deal that was stalling gets a call. The relationship that felt one-sided finds its balance. Not because you manipulated anyone into caring, because you stopped suffocating the situation with your need and let it breathe. This is something the most emotionally intelligent people understand on a bone-deep level. Desperation repels, not because people are cruel or cold, because desperation signals that something is wrong. It signals imbalance. It signals that the other person holds power you do not have, and nobody comfortable in their own life wants that weight. When you step back, when you become genuinely, actually okay with the outcome either way, something in your energy changes and other people feel it before you say a word. The neediness is gone. The pressure is gone. And people, freed from the guilt and discomfort of being needed, find themselves leaning in out of their own curiosity. In negotiations, this is called the walkaway. The best negotiators in the world know it in their bones. The greatest deals in history were closed because someone was genuinely willing to not close them, not bluffing, willing. When you cannot walk away, the other side feels it the way a dog smells fear. When you can, they feel that too. And suddenly the power in the room redistributes itself without a single word being said about power. The moment you stop needing the yes, you become far more likely to get it, because now you are negotiating from solid ground instead of sinking sand. Now apply this to the texture of everyday life. Apply this to the person in your world who seems impossible to reach. The teenager who shuts down every time you offer advice. The colleague who rejects every suggestion you make. The partner who feels cornered whenever you bring up something difficult. You have been going straight at them, over and over, wondering why nothing lands. You have been trying to enter through a locked door, and each time you knock harder, the lock turns another degree tighter. Reverse psychology says, stop knocking, try the window. Better yet, become someone interesting enough that they come to find you. With someone who resists advice, the move is to agree with their resistance, not sarcastically. Genuinely you say, yeah, you know what, you might be right. Maybe this is not the right path for you. Maybe this takes a very particular kind of person and a very particular kind of mindset to pull off. And then you leave it there. You do not finish the sentence with a pointed look. You do not follow up. You let it sit. Because now, their mind is doing all the work for you. Now they are sitting with the question you left in the room. Now they are the ones turning it over in their heads, examining it, wondering if you were right or wrong, wondering what you meant by a very particular kind of person. The door opens from the inside. It always does. It can only open from the inside. And you cannot force that with pressure. You can only invite it by stepping back and trusting the process. This is why the best leaders in any field rarely give orders the way people imagine leaders do. They ask questions. They create conditions. They say, I wonder if anyone on this team is sharp enough to crack something this difficult. And suddenly everyone in the room is thinking about how to crack it. The challenge was issued without being issued. The ambition was activated without being commanded. This is not manipulation. This is not a game. This is the deep understanding that human beings are not machines who respond to input and produce predictable output. They are creatures with egos and histories and internal narratives, and the most intelligent thing you can do is enter that story carefully, without trampling it, without rewriting it by force. The oldest example of this dynamic is the forbidden fruit. The moment something is marked off limits, it becomes fascinating in a way that nothing openly available ever manages to be. The velvet rope makes the club feel worth entering. The out-of-stock notice makes the product feel urgent and precious. The relationship that feels slightly unattainable makes the heart beat faster than the one that is completely available. You are not doing anything wrong by understanding this mechanism. You are just seeing clearly what was already happening, what has always been happening, underneath the surface of every interaction you have ever had. There is another layer to this that does not get enough attention. The way you talk about yourself is a form of reverse psychology too. People who constantly describe themselves as successful, capable, important, are almost always trying to convince someone, and that someone can feel it. The person who barely mentions their achievements, who lets other people discover them, who seems genuinely indifferent to being impressive. That person reads as the most impressive person in the room. Not because they are hiding something, because they are not performing anything. And in a world full of performance, the absence of performance is magnetic in a way that no highlight reel ever manages to be. So what do you actually do with this understanding in your own life, in the specific moments that count? You stop explaining yourself so much. When you over-explain, when you justify every decision before anyone asks for justification, you signal insecurity. You signal that you are not sure you can stand on your own without the explanation as a scaffolding. The person who acts and then simply is present, who does not frantically justify every choice, who trusts that the decision speaks for itself, that person reads as powerful. That person reads as someone who has made this kind of decision before and knows it was the right one. You stop correcting people in public. The instinct to win an argument in front of others is a trap that swallows people whole. Even when you are completely right, you are losing, because the other person is now locked into their position by pride, by audience, by the simple human need to not be publicly embarrassed. They cannot agree with you now even if they want to, even if they know you are right. Private correction, a quiet word, a conversation behind closed doors where no one is performing, that is where minds actually change. That is where the ego is not on the line and the truth has room to come in. You learn to let people talk themselves into things. The most underrated skill in any conversation, in any negotiation, in any relationship, is silence. Not aggressive silence. Not the silence of someone who checked out. Comfortable silence. The silence of someone who asked a real question and is genuinely waiting to hear the answer. When you stop filling every moment with your argument, when you create space, something remarkable happens. People fill that space with their own thoughts, and those thoughts lead somewhere. And often, left alone long enough, people lead themselves exactly where you wanted them to go. Not because you pushed them there. Because you got out of the way and let them walk there on their own. You understand the power of mild, genuine doubt. A sentence like, "I am not sure everyone has the patience for this," is 10 times more effective than, "You should try this." The first one activates something territorial and proud. The second one creates resistance and a reason to say no. You are not lying when you say the first one. You are simply speaking to the part of the person that needs to prove itself, and that part is always listening. Always just below the surface, always ready to respond to a challenge it feels is real. You become comfortable with appearing to want something a little less than you actually do. This is perhaps the most difficult piece of all this, because it cannot be purely performance. It requires genuine internal work, not just the right words. You have to actually build a life full enough that you are not banking everything on one outcome, one conversation, one yes. You have to actually develop alternatives, options, a sense of self that does not collapse if this particular thing does not come through. And when you do that, something extraordinary happens. The thing you wanted, freed from the weight of your desperation, often comes to you on its own schedule without you engineering every step. This is the part of the conversation nobody wants to have, because it is not a hack. It requires real change. It requires becoming someone who genuinely does not need external validation to feel whole. Someone who pursues things from a place of abundance rather than from a hollow, anxious lack. And that person does not just use reverse psychology more effectively. That person simply moves through the world differently. Doors open. Rooms change when they enter. People find themselves wanting to say yes before they even understand why. Consider for a moment the people you have admired most in your life. Not the ones who were loudest. Not the ones who made the most demands or took up the most space or insisted the hardest on being seen. The ones you actually respected. The ones you actually wanted to be around. There is a pattern there if you look honestly enough. They tended to be comfortable in ways other people were not. Comfortable with silence. Comfortable with ambiguity. Comfortable with not needing to win every exchange. They were the people who could let something pass without chasing it down. Who could hear a criticism without immediately defending themselves. Who could be interested in you without needing you to be interested in them back. That comfort was not passivity, it was power. It was the specific kind of power that reverse psychology, at its deepest level, is really about. Because when you trace it all the way back, what we are really talking about is emotional regulation in the presence of stakes. The ability to feel the pull of something you want and still act like you have options. The ability to hear resistance and not respond with more force. The ability to be in a room where everyone else is performing certainty and choose instead to sit quietly with genuine curiosity. This is not something you can fake convincingly for long. It has to be real, and making it real is the actual work. The psychology you use on others is only ever as effective as the psychology you have done on yourself first. That sentence is worth reading again. The tools you bring to other people are borrowed from your own interior. Fix the interior first. Everything built on top of that becomes exponentially more effective, more natural, and far more sustainable than anything built on top of performance. This is why the concept goes so much deeper than technique. You can memorize every tactical application of reverse psychology ever written and still walk into a room and undermine yourself in the first 5 minutes because your neediness is written in your body language, in the speed of your replies, in the way your eyes search for approval. People read all of that before you say a word. The real transformation begins when you stop needing things enough that the not needing becomes genuine. When you have built enough alternatives that you truly are fine either way. That is the foundation everything else stands on. Think about what changes when you approach any important conversation from that place. You are not managing your anxiety while pretending to be calm. You are actually calm. You are not forcing yourself not to chase. You genuinely have somewhere else to be. You are not performing indifference. You are indifferent to the outcome in the healthiest possible sense. Because you trust yourself to create another path if this one closes. And from that place, the words you choose, the pauses you allow, the moments you decide not to fill with explanation, all of it lands differently. All of it reads as authority rather than anxiety. People respond to that without knowing why. They simply feel it, the same way you feel it when someone walks into a room and the air changes without a word being said. You can become that person. It starts long before the conversation. It starts with the decision to actually do the internal work rather than just learn the surface moves. There is something else worth sitting with here, something about patience. Most of the time when reverse psychology fails, it fails not because the technique was wrong but because the person could not hold the position long enough. They withdrew, and then panicked and rushed back in. They planted the seed of doubt and then immediately tried to water it into a full-grown tree overnight. The real skill, the one that separates the people who are genuinely magnetic from the ones who are just trying tactics, they read about somewhere, is the ability to trust the timing. To genuinely step back and let things develop on their own schedule without interfering out of anxiety. The world is full of people pushing their opinions, pushing their products, pushing themselves into every conversation, pushing for outcomes they need in a way that everyone can feel. The noise of it is relentless. And in all that noise, the person who stops pushing, who steps back with genuine calm, who makes space instead of filling it, who appears slightly indifferent, where everyone else appears hungry, that person becomes the most compelling person in the building. Not because they are playing a game, because they have understood something everyone else is still desperately trying to learn. That the thing you are chasing can feel you chasing it. That pressure creates counterpressure. Every time, without exception, and nothing runs faster than something that feels hunted. Stop hunting. Build, instead. Build the kind of presence that does not need to demand attention because it draws it naturally. Build the kind of life that makes you genuinely okay with walking away. Build the kind of patience that can plant something and then trust the soil. Use the understanding of reactance, not to control people, but to stop creating unnecessary friction in every direction. Say less and mean more. Imply instead of insisting. Agree when it surprises people. Doubt when it ignites people. Step back when everything in you wants to step forward and fight. This is not manipulation. Done right, with honesty and genuine emotional intelligence, this is the opposite of manipulation. Manipulation is forcing the world into your shape through deception, through hiding what you are doing behind a mask of something else. What this is clarity. It is seeing human psychology with open and honest eyes and moving through it without collision, without grinding friction, without the exhausting and ultimately futile effort of trying to push people who were never going to be pushed. The game was never about force. It never was. It was always about gravity. About becoming someone worth orbiting rather than someone who chases. About understanding that the most powerful position in any dynamic is not the loudest position, or the most insistent one, or the one that never backs down. It is the one that is so genuinely secure, so actually unbothered, so truly okay with any outcome, that everything else reorganizes itself around it without being asked. Become that, build that, practice that in the small moments so you have it available in the ones that matter. Become that, build that, practice that in the small moments so you have it available in the ones that matter. There is one more thing that needs to be said about all of this, because leaving it out would make everything before it feel incomplete. Reverse psychology works. It works reliably, and it works across almost every domain of human interaction. But it is not a solution to every problem, and it is not a substitute for genuine substance. The person who uses it to get into rooms they have no business being in, to extract things they have not earned, to build relationships on a foundation of manufactured distance rather than real connection, that person will eventually find that what they collected does not hold. The technique got them in the door, but there was nothing behind the door worth staying for. The deepest version of this, the one that actually builds a life and not just a series of tactical wins, is using the understanding of reactance and psychology and human nature to become someone worth knowing. Not to seem like someone worth knowing. To actually be that person, to do the work, to build the substance, to develop the skills and the calm and the genuine lack of desperation that makes reverse psychology not a strategy you deploy but a natural expression of who you are. At that point, it stops being psychology and starts being character. And character, built honestly and slowly over real time, opens doors that no amount of tactical brilliance or clever framing ever could. That is the version worth building toward. Not the shortcut, the foundation, the rest. Slowly and steadily, and sometimes in ways you cannot predict, takes care of itself.